So heavy, knock you down when you're down already. Oh, so much to carry. Why does everything gotta be so heavy? All the drama lately, yeah, it's overrated. So unnecessary, yeah, I just can't take this feeling anymore. Leave it at the door. I've been falling over, too much on my shoulders. You can only think so much before you break down. All I really need is space to breathe. Why does everything gotta be so heavy? Knock you down when you're down already. Oh, so much to carry. Why does everything gotta be so heavy? Stop, just wait a minute. I just need a second to regain my peace of mind before I explode. 'Cause there's a lot of things I can't control. I can't control. Why does everything gotta be so heavy? Knock you down when you're down already. Oh, so much to carry. Why does everything gotta be so heavy? Ooh, to the people in the back, all the way to the front row, front row. Ooh, now let me hear it back. Sometimes I gotta let go, let go. Ooh, to the people in the back, all the way to the front row, front row. Ooh, now let me hear it back. Sometimes I gotta let go, let go. Ooh, to the people in the back, all the way to the front row, front row. Ooh, now sing it on back. Sometimes I gotta let go, let go. Ooh, to the people in the back, all the way to the front row, front row. Ooh, now sing it on back. Sometimes I gotta let go, let go. Why does everything gotta be so heavy? Knock it down when you're down already. Oh, so much to carry. Why does everything gotta be so heavy? Why does everything gotta be so heavy? Knock it down when you're down already. Oh, so much to carry. Why does everything gotta be so heavy?
What up, Wednesday? Hi, friends. Oh, I still have my glasses on. I'm a little flustered. Things are crazy. Let me know how my sound is. I am, trying something different, as always. I am always striving to improve. I get debrief from you guys, and I want to make things better. Let's see. Yeah, hopefully no glitches this week, Ian. I completely agree. So today, before I get into saying hi to everybody and seeing what's going on, a few announcements. Sound is good. Good to hear it. Okay. Few announcements. As always, the video call-in option is available. So I already have one person I know who's going to call in a little bit later and have a chat with me. And I'm really excited about that, so get ready. But if you are interested in doing that, FHumpires.com/eCam. It's in the description, so go there and have a look. And, oh, Godders is on Twitter, and it's working. Holy smokes. Technology, when it works. It's amazing. I'm so inspired. So that's a big thing. Next week, major announcement for you guys. Okay, let's see if I can do this right. Next week marks the return of Umpire at Home. Yes, indeed. I am back and ready to have guests. Now I've got all my software worked out. So next week is going to be none other than Lee Barron. We are continuing with our indoor theme, and Lee, or Baz as some people call him, which I don't know, like we're friends, but I don't know, it's a very English nickname, so I'm not sure if I can use it. We'll see. He'll tell me. He is going to come on and lead us through his most recent Indoor World Cup final, because if I forget that he's done two, he will remind me. So he's going to come on and lead us through some clips, and we're going to talk about indoor in general and how he got into it so seriously. He is one of the highest capped, if not the highest capped, international indoor umpires out there. So we are really lucky to have him coming on. So I hope you can join me next week, same time, same bat channel for that. Going to be awesome. The last thing I wanted to tell you all about, if you missed the announcement, I kind of soft launched it last week because, hey, like everything new, I'm not sure if it's going to work. But I am offering one-on-one training now. So it's like this, except I might have a little less makeup on, and it's only you and I. And we are going to be able to have a one-on-one Zoom call and talk about anything that you would like to share. So if you are struggling with motivation, if there's a scenario that you worked on and it went through in a game and it just didn't quite work out, there's something that you saw out there, you'd like some life advice, don't ask me. No, ask me. Who knows? It might go well. I might give you something good. Who knows? And yes, I would love to hear from you. So that is a complimentary 30-minute call with me for everybody. Yellow members, though, get 60 minutes every month. And you know what? I'm really bad at timing myself, so it might be longer than 60 minutes, you guys. So I hope that some of you take advantage of that, because I would love to have some more. I'd love to be able to reach out and help more like I do on this show. So that's the thing. Let's see who is on board. Teo liked to comment about the umpire disco at the beginning. Look, I like music before the show starts, and I want to get ramped up. I want to feel good. I need to get my energy up, and yeah, that's how I do it. Sorry, I'm just going to change my camera here to a little bit dimmer because it's looking a little bright. And this overlay, there we go. That's looking a lot better. Things are looking a little, my hair looked brassy AF, just saying. Gotta fix these things. Simon is checking out just here on Facebook, not trying to cover YouTube, Facebook, Yellow, Twitter, etc. Cool, gotcha. Thanks for coming in. Rachel's in the house, great to see you. Megs, good luck today. Okay, don't say anything on the broadcast because I'll get distracted and I'll want to go check. Because we are all cheering for you. I can promise you that. Crispy's in the house. Godders is here. As Ian said earlier, hopefully no glitches. Let's see. Mike McDonough, my favorite Dunn derivative, is here. Awesome. Jacob, thanks for popping back. Jacob is been giving me a lot of feedback on the sound, so very helpful. Thank you. Barry Hainsworth. Great to see you all the way. Anique de Klerk, hello, new friend. Welcome to the broadcast. Wonderful to have you. Simon Parsons, good to see you. He's watching tonight because he wants to see what's going to happen to him next week. It's okay. We're going to practice, Baz. It's fine. We're going to do that call tomorrow. We're going to practice it all. It'll be good. Okay, the Yeti's a little quiet. I have it like maxed out because you have to turn the gain down. But let's see if I can turn it up just a little bit over here. Sound input. Let's see if that helps. It probably won't make a difference. Bring my mic closer. Baz saw his promo shot. There you go. Look, we got to hype this, man. We got to hype. Mike McCartney. See, you're not late because I decided to make some announcements at the beginning. But you'll have to watch the replay to see what I talked about. There you are. Godders, agree. Tariq, good to see you. Welcome to the broadcast. No, Teo, you can't put any song requests in because I have to make sure I don't get hauled up on copyright claims. I have some experience in the area, so there you go. David Hughes. Yes. Oh my God. No, Michael, honestly, it goes so fast. Anytime I set a mark for X amount of time to talk to somebody, it automatically triples. So don't worry. Let's give it a shot. Let's see what happens. Oh, Jay, you're in the house. Mr. Janis Juski, as I never say it properly. It's good to have you joining in. AJ's here. Alex, awesome. Let's see. Chris is asking if I'm going to use some of the Cal Cup examples for Dissent and Misconduct. Sure. Maybe. It could be happening. Hi, Andrea. Welcome on board. It's great to see you all. Thank you so much for joining in. Let's get started to the meat of the matter because it's a fairly big one today. I have some clips, but like I mentioned earlier, I really would like to hear from you, either in the chat if you feel more comfortable, or if you are bold enough to want to call in FHumpires.com/ecam. Is that what I did? Or is it gas? Oh, shoot. I think it's ecam. It's in the description anyway. And you can call in and we can have a conversation on video. The only things are you just need to make sure you have headphones and make sure you mute whatever broadcast you're watching, because we will be in real time. We will be 20 seconds ahead of what happens on the screen. It's the internet, okay? This is what happens. They like to buffer the whole video until it stacks up enough that they know that you can get a good viewing experience on your end. It's like Netflix, but real time. There you are. Roll's here. Very welcome. Glad to have you on board. Okay, so getting to this week's topic, let's talk about Dissent misconduct. And what I want to focus on, as my friend Crispy Prince of Wales brought to my attention this week, he showed me a couple examples from rugby of some maybe untraditional forms of dissent or misconduct. And the question that we started talking about was, where do you draw the line? What is your tipping point? And I've seen lots of chatter on lots of discussion forums where examples have been raised where people have a very broad range of responses. So I think this is something that we could delve into to try to develop some consensus as to why we deal with misconduct, so that we can then get to a when we would deal with misconduct, and then finally a how. Because we all have different feelings and different opinions on this, but that makes it harder for players who know where they can push things and what lines they can't step over. And so they get frustrated sometimes about the interventions that we do take or we don't take, and they expect us to take some. So let's clear that up today. Let's talk about it. Let's see. Yes, so Simon is bringing up one of the scenarios that Crispy showed me, and I didn't clip it to put it on the broadcast. But a English rugby player was just banned for swearing at the referee, and he said something to the fact that, I don't know, there was something happening. There were bodies flying, and there was like in football, like in American football, it would have been a clip. It would have been illegal and something. And he said to the effect of, "Are you effing serious?" And it got caught on broadcast. And I guess at the time, I don't know if it was really dealt with in the match. I don't know if that penalty can be awarded later, but I didn't really see clearly on the clip what happened, which was another reason I didn't want to show it, because I'm like, I don't get this. I don't know what's happening. But yes, as Simon Milford just added he has been banned for some time. And I'd like to talk about that and, you know, those kind of reactions, those kind of scenarios. Swearing especially is a difficult one. And you presume that I'm covering but I wasn't talking to you and looking at the funny way. Exactly. Those things that you're like, I'm not quite sure if this is what I should do. And then there's some people who really have their standards where I think they're either far too lax or far too strict in that respect. And so let's get to that. Okay. Every single one of us has dealt with dissent and misconduct on the pitch. And if you haven't, you got to tell me right now in the chat, because I will give you a money prize of $5 Canadian, which is worth nothing. But this is something that we have to, it's one of our earliest skills that we develop, and yet it's something that we don't talk about very much. And when we talk about why we deal with misconduct, I think it's really important for us as umpires to acknowledge and embrace that it is not about us. Even though sometimes the misconduct is specifically directed at us, somebody is staring at us in the eyes or shouting in our face or whatever the case might be, it is not personal. They are not shouting at us as a person. They are shouting at us as this alien being umpire that they don't understand. And we need to separate that out from what I think the real purpose of addressing and dealing with misconduct is, which is we need to maintain a standard for our game. I've had lots of conversations with players and coaches, and when something gets dealt with, where the messages come back to me that they said, we're so glad you did that. We're so glad that you gave that card. We're so glad that you addressed that situation, because it affects all of the players and their enjoyment of their day. This is, when they're out there playing, it's about them and about them enjoying their experience and having fun and playing the best hockey they can. If there is one individual or a group of individuals who are interfering with that because they're shouting and they're being jerks and they're distracting and disruptive and bringing this negativity, and I'm not all woo-woo, but you bring that vibe, that energy into a game, and it wrecks it for everybody. There's also fans, observers. There's the kids on the side who want to pick up a stick and who want to be just like the players that they see on the pitch. And then they see that nonsense. Or maybe it's a kid who wants to pick up a whistle. And then they see that abuse coming at the umpire, and they don't want to do it. They don't want to put themselves in that position. They think it's uncomfortable. It's very upsetting, something to avoid. So our purpose in stamping down on misconduct is not because it upsets us, it hurts our feelings, it makes us not want to come out the next day. It's for the game. It's for everybody and everybody's feelings and everybody's enjoyment of the game. So I think that's a really important marker to keep in your mind as we go through some scenarios and some clips and some discussions, because a lot of people will say things like, I hate swearing, or, you know, I've even said in the past, I hate particular words. But the way that I manage that is that I acknowledge that's my feeling about it. And if I'm the only one who's affected, then that's my problem to deal with. And I can maybe mitigate that with a player and just sort of ask them gently to not use that word. So I told the story, I think, when I was umpiring men's university, and it was up at Durham, and I heard the unforgivable curse, the one that North Americans don't say. And I just walked up to the player and in between a couple of them, because they were kind of saying the word back and forth to each other. And I said, I'm really glad I didn't hear that word, because if I did, I'd be pretty offended. And that was enough. I just told them where my personal line was. I didn't say, I'm going to card you if I hear that again or anything like that. So acknowledge and respect your own boundaries, but realize that maybe that's not what you want to take into the game and the standards you want to accept. Now, that doesn't mean that if that player shouts that word all over the park, that you don't want to do something about it, because that might offend many, many people. That's the difference. Okay, I'm just gonna look at some comments first before I start launching into some examples. Oh yeah, everybody's got funny Dissent stories for sure. Alistair, good to see you. Yes, sarcasm. Michael, we're absolutely going to talk about that first, but let's see. The first one I want to talk about. Okay, Teo, I'll answer your question first. Have I ever enjoyed booking a rather rude player? And maybe part of me did, but also part of me feels like it's my responsibility. So I'm not looking, it should never be about my feelings and my want for revenge and I'm going to show this player up and all that kind of stuff. Because that's exactly the kind of attitude that when we are addressing players, like we're making it about them and they're making it about us. And now we have this adversarial thing going on and it doesn't matter. That's not the important thing. When players do things on the pitch, like they commit big fouls or things like that, you have to separate yourself and be dispassionate about what they've just done so that you can reach the right decision and not react personally. And you don't want the player to react personally to what you've just done. They're like, you're mean and you're sending me off. No, it's not about that. It's about what you just, the danger you just put that other player in. It's about the fact that you did something that illegally broke down play and made it harder for something great to happen. And we want greatness. We want awesome things to happen on the pitch. So don't make it about you. And maybe the players will understand that, appreciate that, and subconsciously will also not make penalties about them. I hope that makes sense. Ian, well said. No Dissent in 2021. You can put up that sign. I have had, 13 days with no Dissent. I agree. Okay, let's go through a few examples here. The first clip I'm going to show is an example of what I would call that steps over the line of misconduct that you need to deal with it because it's audible and it's demonstrative. Okay?
Waiting to come on. Coaches ring the changes. A green card wave there to Ian Sloan.
So I hope you all got a good view on that, and let me know if you want to see it again or hear it again. But what stood out to me in that moment was how physically demonstrative the players were in that moment. And then it was even like the player that I thought was going to get sent off, it wasn't them. It wasn't the first player who, if I go back to the movie here, so it wasn't the one that committed the stick obstruction and who was very upset and he shouted and he had his hands out like this, like, oh, come on. It was actually Sloan who ran past the umpire and had something even more to say. So I don't know what the player said, but I think in this situation, it's fair and reasonable and good for the game to deal with the audible and demonstrative dissent that came at the umpire, not because it hurts his feelings, but because it was a very large show of disrespect to everybody in the stadium. And it showed a lack of respect for the game. It was a minor call. It was nothing. It was in the middle of the park. It wasn't a card. It wasn't a corner. It was nothing. So why the histrionics? Why the drama? So that is one criterion you might apply when you're looking at, should I deal with this or not? Is it something that people in the back are going to pick up on and feel uncomfortable about and feel upset about. Let's get to a few comments here. Alistair, I normally smile and say thank you. I do my best and keep your eye on things. Absolutely. Chris J, I might, I'll keep your comment on there, but I'm not necessarily going to put that one on the broadcast. Let me just sort of think about that for a little bit. Let me put this up for all of you. I will be able to show you, and you can see, hopefully, chat is ready to display messages. Let's see if it happens. You should be able to see all of the various comments, because we have some people from YouTube, we have people from Periscope/Twitter right now. So let's see if this works. If it doesn't, cool. Hi, Simon. You're late, but I'm still happy to have you. Yeah, that's exactly right, Scott. We're really, really, I think, in this era, thinking very carefully and taking some really positive steps to getting us all on the same page. There's two teams that are playing the game on the field, and then a third team who are constructing the game on the field as well. And we are all part of that game. We are all building it together. So I want to make sure that I do my part to help encourage the whole community to bring this together. So there you go. And you always late. Oh my God. Okay. So that's a pretty easy one. Here's one that's a little subtle, a little different. Simon, your comment here that it was good because one player managed to, oh yeah, there it comes. One manager revved it up and then the other one copped the penalty. Yeah, and it's sort of an example for players is like this is why you don't start it, because you can be the one who instigates, and then it's your colleague, it's your teammate who ends up paying the price for for your lack of composure, judgment, all that kind of stuff. Really good point, Godders. Absolutely. The self-pass has reduced dissent. And when your whistle timing is sharp and you're keeping the ball close to where fouls are occurring and allowing more self-passes to happen, you are absolutely going to cut down on the dissent. And you just start just going, sorry, no time, bye. I'm off with the ball. We'll talk later. And it disrupts that rhythm. It's wow. I've been watching a lot of dog training videos, even though I don't have a dog, on Facebook. And it's disrupting that connection, that pattern of behavior, and replacing it with a different reaction. Same stimulus still happens. The call they don't like, it still happens, but then it's replaced with a different action, which is we have to get back on defense, usually. Okay. Yeah, Chris, I'll get to your comment in a sec when I show this clip here. A lot of you might remember this one from the Pro League in 2019. Turn up the volume again.
Used that and lost it.
Max, you're the captain. Doesn't give you the right to swear at me. Off. Man up. Listen, don't make it any worse for you. Off you go.
What's the swearing?
You know exactly what you said. I don't want to repeat
it. It's a penalty stroke.
Listen, go. Otherwise, it's a yellow. Oh well, is that the only reason? I'm not repeating it on TV for everybody. Thank you. Enough's enough.
So a lot went on into that. You could hear the exchange where Mats Granbush, the captain, was trying to protest that he hadn't sworn, or that the implication to me was, maybe you misunderstood. Maybe I swore in a different language. You tell me what the swear was if you think you're so smart and you can understand swears in German or something like that. There was sort of that connotation there, but maybe he just swore in English. I don't know, because the broadcast didn't necessarily pick it up. But the response that Dan Barstow gave to that situation when, Mats was, what the swear was, and he said, I'm not going to repeat it on television. So what Dan Barstow was pointing out is that, you are so close to me, you are shouting, my mic is picking these things up, and that means that I can't just ignore it. If you are further away, if it's quieter, if it doesn't affect the integrity of the game, I don't have to deal with it, right? I might just say, hey, you know, just keep it down for the people in the back. Make sure they can't hear. Because your personal line, you might be like me, where I really don't mind swearing. I'm a big swearer myself. I try not to swear live on broadcasts or anything like that, because I don't want YouTube to haul me out or anything like that. But I don't personally have a problem with players who occasionally let out a swear. But I do have a responsibility to the audience. And Dan recognized his responsibility to the integrity of the broadcast of the marquee event of international hockey, that he could not allow that to happen, and he certainly couldn't repeat it on the show. So I really liked that embodiment of the spirit. So I hope you have a that helps you out with that. Chris J tried not to make it personal when he was dealing with dissent from another player, but the arrogance of ability and knowledge was above and beyond what needed to handle. And there was a bit of a racial element to this, what Chris was talking about earlier. And yes, it is difficult. And I've had actually a few people. I was talking with my friend Ellie Lee, who is a retired Canadian women's national team player, PATH media officer, and she's a very good umpire here in Canada. And she was saying that, you know, she struggles with dealing with certain pockets of players. You know, it's almost like BIPOC, but it's players of color. And which is ironic because she's Asian, and then, you know, she's dealing with but different Asian players, and how there are misunderstandings about that. And I guess it's really important, especially for us, if we are, you know, in positions of privilege, to make sure that we have to take the high road on this and think very carefully and very calmly about our reactions. Do not take it personally. Again, it is not about you as a person. It is about systemic race relations in a very, very big picture. And it's way more complicated than one decision that somebody doesn't like in a hockey game. So don't react to it in that context. I say you really have to stiff upper lip this one. And it's about all the work you can do off the pitch to try to build the bridges and the communication. So for example, you know, in Canada, in the US, there's many communities. I know they're in England as well, where you have pockets of expat Asian players and things like that. People who are first, second, third generation Asian immigrant children, and, you know, who are playing. And then you get their pockets of parents. And I was an umpire manager at a tournament. Well, it wasn't last year, it was the year before. And I specifically went and I stood with and I struck up conversations with the pockets of parents to let them know that I wanted to hear them and I wanted to communicate with them back. And, you know, there I was, the one blonde white woman standing in the middle of this group. But that's the kind of thing that was really important for me to do, to try to do. And say, hey, like, what's up? What's up, everybody? How you liking it? How you liking the hockey? And you pick out, you know, maybe one or two people that you feel like you can have a rational conversation with and say, hey, what are you seeing? You know, dude, you know, how do you like this umpire? And get their feedback, hear them, talk to them, and also just, you know, build that bridge. So there's things to do sort of off the pitch more carefully, but that's what I would say about that. Yes, that is exactly the point. Ewan really liked the even voice, the strong response, and then he moved on quickly. Well done. Absolutely. And yes, Lee's pointing out that there's a difference between player frustrations And those that are directed at the umpire is a member of the position. Yep. So sometimes you'll have, expressions of frustration, and the language that's being used isn't really targeted at you. Anytime, like, players can say things like, and they can swear in the middle of criticizing a decision, but it's when they swear and they tell me that I'm an effing something or something, that's when things are, you're insulting the position. And if it's angry enough and demonstrative enough, then that's what I have to deal with, because it's not that you're hurting my feelings, because I know I'm not effing something and something. I'm very confident about that. But I can't allow that expression to be a generalized opinion that everybody starts sharing about umpires in general. Okay? I hope that makes sense. Let's see. Barry, club teams now have a wide range of ages and teens promoted to higher sides. Absolutely. The standards, and this is the example. Yes, you want to be setting examples, but I still think it's not about coddling them, though, about the realities, because, hey, you know what? It's not your job to pick whether a 15-year-old should be playing with a bunch of 20-somethings, 30-somethings who have foul mouths and all that kind of stuff. That's not your job. You're not policing their socialization and their introductions to adulthood. What you're doing is you're establishing standards for the game and for our sport. And the sport is something that is experienced as a group. So if it's an individual interaction, it's kept to, just a couple players, and it's quiet, no need to worry about it. Okay. Let's go on to another clip here that I really like. And
Stubborn Horse got on with that very, very quickly. Caught Argentina just on their heels, and that's why the foul was committed when she cut infield.
Inside and stop.
Very sharp whistle from Kelly Hudson. I've never seen her puff out her cheeks when she's blown a whistle before.
Schroeder not happy at all. She took the free hit. She
And then it
felt on the
continues.
right spot and had to retake it. Good run inside the circle.
Anna Schroeder's been literally chatting from the first couple of minutes, if I'm honest. She felt she should have had a stick tackle, wasn't giving it. Kelly Hudson's just going over to have a little chat in her ear, try and calm her down while Michelle Joubert has a chat with another German. And
so what you have there is you've got two incidences of players on the same team, like back to back. So this is a cumulative thing. And if you could hear, I think that was Helen RW talking in color that, Schroeder in particular, one of the German players, has been chatting since the beginning of the match. That was halfway through Q2. So there had been a lot. And obviously, you're trying to take the attitude that, okay, I'm not going to worry about this, right now. It's small. But the accumulation, and you can tell that the climate of the game had gotten to the point where it was far too aggressive as directed toward the umpiring team. And so one umpire dealt with it on her end, and then another umpire, to make it very clear. And then the two of them are talking on the radio. It's like, okay, I know we've got this. So that they're on the same page about what they're going to do if this continues. So it was pretty strong words from Kelly, and then Michelle, I am not going to hear this. And so it was very, very strong body language, very strong eyes, all that kind of stuff. And the intervention is early in the game. So hopefully that gives the players an opportunity to take that message on board and go, okay, that's where the line is. That amount of demonstrative, loud appealing is not cool. So we're not going to do that anymore. Hopefully. That would be the plan. Teo, if a player gives it to an umpire, is it okay to give it back? Is there a sliding scale of banter? Depends on what you're qualifying as banter. There's a difference between the sternness that you saw from Kelly and Michelle there, and that, you've seen at moments from top umpires where they pull their angry eyes out of their back pockets. Okay, I have to do it.
Prepare to meet Mr. Angry Eyes.
Okay, so they've popped out their angry eyes, so they've popped them into their heads. There's my humor for the day. But they pop them back out again to do the rest of the game. You can't stay angry. So when you're giving it back to the players, you're not. You're sending a different message clearly. If it's humorous banter, you have to be careful. Sorry. Because what you might find funny, other people don't. We know that humor is very delicate. And you're going to succeed more often in communities that you've been in a long time. Like the stuff that I can say to players that I've been playing with for 30 years here in Calgary, I would never dream of saying to anybody else in the world anywhere. And I don't care how funny they think they are. I wouldn't say it to like a bunch of Australians or a bunch of it. Like, no way. It's because I know them and they know me. And we've known each other for a long time. So they know my sense of humor. They trust me. So even if I get it wrong, they're not going to overreact and they're not going to freak out. So you have to be really careful about the scenarios in which you engage in that kind of banter. And there's something to be said for appreciating banter that comes at you, but not necessarily having to one-up that to give it back. You know, if a player says something funny, I think there was, I tried to clip a couple things off Field Hockey Forum, but the forum's down, so I couldn't. But, oh yeah, no, this was on Facebook, and it was something about, there's a long-standing joke about Bernard Castle being basically a pseudonym for BS, and a player had made a comment about how, you know, that call was a bunch of Bernard Castle, and my response to that was, you know what, that's so funny that I think you should just, you know, you should laugh and appreciate it and move on and just go, all right, I hear you, that's a good one, and move on. You don't necessarily have to be able to do that exchange, and I think, you know, maybe that's the Canadian in me that recognizes that my ability to banter is limited. I didn't grow up in the culture that, you know, people in the UK do, where that's just, you are trained in banter. I swear, I've seen it happen. You're trained in banter from a young age. So keep that in mind when you're umpiring. Appreciation is good, competition is bad in banter. Let's see. Perth Luxury. I don't know who this is, but cool. Murray Graham pulls out the angry eyes, dishes out 5 yellows, 2 greens, and 3 yellows are 10 minutes. Yeah, well, that sounds less like angry eyes and a lot like that. Yes, Pierluigi Collina. If you don't know who he is, we're not friends anymore, because even I know who he is, and I have zero interest in football. So he is the world famous retired Italian football referee, and what was so remarkable about him is that he was maybe not the traditionally best looking man on the planet, put it that way. Completely bald, pale, big blue eyes, and lean, but he could turn on those eyes and they'd be huge. And he could turn on the eyes and he could look at somebody, but he could look at somebody to give them a message like, hey, and then he would be pointing at somebody else over here, like, I know you're there, and then this over here to calm down a player and to let them know that he's got the situation covered. So he was sending like 3 messages to 3 different people all at once. He's like, you know, it's like, wow, like that was incredible. I've studied still pictures of him, and yeah, master of body language. But the important thing is to acknowledge that, and then you're not, it's very hard because I mentioned it in the last broadcast, but our bodies send signals to our brain about how we should be feeling. So we're interpreting our physiology to tell us what we should be feeling. And so if you keep your angry eyes in your face for too long, you are going to get angry. You are going to feel angry. So it's really important to develop the habit, and you know, this is obviously like mental training, psychological stuff. Whit Harris, where are you when I need you? Where you need to have that ability to pop those out so that you can send that message to yourself that you are, again, calm, composed, confident, prepared, and moving ahead. Anger is very much a past emotion. It's this is how I feel about the thing that happened before. And things that happen in the past are very unhelpful for umpiring well. Reading ahead the facts and predicting the future is very helpful. So an emotion that keeps you back there is not something you want to keep and carry in your body and be informing your brain as to how you should be behaving. Okay. Yes, Stain. So Stain was talking about, let me pull up his post on banter here, because you're absolutely right. He said, I had a player yelling at me. Didn't you see that? I asked her whether she could find me a good option or a good optician in 2 minutes. Didn't happen again. Exactly, right? So if Stain, as you were saying, that this was a local game where you felt very comfortable and you knew everybody and you knew you could get away with it, then awesome. Okay? That's the right time for that. I think sometimes we make the mistake of trying humor when maybe we shouldn't. So, yes, Angry Eyes is channeling your inner Pierre Luigi Colina. Whatever keywords work for you, okay? I've focused on Angry Eyes.
Prepare to meet Mr. Angry Eyes.
Because it's hilarious. And it's cute. And it sticks in people's brains. So when I do the demonstration and I have the physical, you know, and I'm doing it now, it helps to create a very strong emotional connection in the brain, in your brain. But if thinking about Pier Luigi Colina, you're like, I got my PLC on today. Great. Whatever works for you. Okay? Love it. And Bernard Castle's where you go for eye tests. Okay, maybe that was the joke, that it was, yeah. I had to Google it. I knew where Dominic Cummings, I knew he'd gone up to Durham, but I didn't know exactly where. And all that kind of stuff. There you go. Inga, glad you're here. I had a friendly December, missed a few advantages, hit the same player twice with that timing error. She was very loud in her disappointment. And when I said, sorry guys, all I did was walk over to tell her it was probably not a good idea for us to swap places, and we all laughed. Good. I like that. Okay? You, especially when you do it quietly, you're also showing the players that, hey, we can have little conversations and we can establish our rapport that doesn't have to get broadcast to everybody else. One of the things that players, I think, react to when we card them for breaking down play or something like that is they feel embarrassed. They feel like shame. They know they've let the team down a little bit, and they swap that embarrassment and shame for anger, because that's a way better way to react, because otherwise they have to internalize and deal with their own blameworthiness, and they don't want to do that. So they swap it around, and so the emotion is anger. So if you can communicate with players quietly on the side, you're doing so, you're giving them an opportunity to not have to be embarrassed about getting hauled up for something. So sometimes you need to big double whistle, blast it out. Hey, none of that. None of that. And then pop it out again. And then there's times where you can just walk up and say, look, I'm not happy with that. Let's keep it on the low. And then there's a little bit of respect. Okay, they're willing to work with me here. It's teamwork, almost. As close as we can get. Megs, Colina was the best. Absolutely nothing, Godders. You know that. I think it's awesome because your eyes are like, your face is showing. Like, that's why we tie our hair up, and I say no hats, no visors. If you can possibly avoid it, definitely no sunglasses, because the more people can see your eyes, the more you can communicate. Very helpful. I like this key. This is good, Inga. Put in the angry eyes, and then instead of trying to take something away, replace it with and smile. Love it. So angry eyes, and then you pop in the smile. Sorry, that was more like a grimace. You can actually smile. Let's see. Godders. How do we cope where there's two umpires who have different levels of tolerance and attitudes for dissent? It's like a lot of other things, right? You need to communicate about that before the match starts, if you can. Obviously, this is why when you know your colleague well, this is just another one of those things that you're on the same page about, because you know what each other feel. But it's about, establishing, okay, and when you're on radios, you can then say, I don't like where this is going. Like when you heard Kelly and Michelle, a little bit, it was a little hard to pick up on the broadcast, but they did say, okay, yep, gotcha, understand. And you're able to say, that's over my line. But sometimes, you might be able to say to your colleague, okay, we're cool. And you can help diffuse your colleague's level of personal upset and draw them out and say, hey, I got your back. Everything's fine. Let's do this. Let's quicken up our whistles. Let's read ahead. Let's, give each other something to do instead of stewing about the upset and the anger, so that your colleague doesn't end up overreacting to something that you don't like. Simon's telling me that Goddard's is very Pierluigi Collina-like because he is slim, tall, and, oh yeah, bald. I didn't know he was tall because I've only ever seen him in a Zoom screen. So, who knows? Alistair, a lot of this is pregame prep, i.e. what level you're umpiring, history of the teams, any attitude history, and talk to the captains and the other umpire before the game. Yeah. There's a balance to be struck about not necessarily bringing in issues from the past into your current game. And I get that. But for those of you who joined in on the What Up Wednesday special on Christmas, just before Christmas, when I told the story about the worst game in history, something that if I had been more aware of, if I had thought more carefully about the geopolitical history and ideas about colonialism and racism, I may have been more prepared for what happened in that game. And I regret not thinking about those things, not having a conversation with my colleague about those things before the game. We absolutely didn't. We walked in as fresh-faced neutrals and didn't think about, okay, what does this mean? Every time you walk into a Netherlands versus Germany game, there's something in that history. And that happened to me too I was in Dublin doing a European Under-21 Championships. My umpire manager was from the Netherlands, was from Germany, and I was umpiring a Dutch game against, I think it was Spain. And I called a penalty corner in favor of Netherlands, or a stroke in favor of the Dutch team at some point in the game that my UM really didn't like. And she reacted so strongly to it. And it turned into this big political thing. And not knowing the context of that kind of adversarial history, I really took her criticism to heart rather than staying strong and like, no, actually, I saw what I saw and I was very clear about it, because when we went to the video later, it actually turned out I was completely correct. And she turned around to me and said, Keely, why did you let me tell you that you were wrong? I'm like, I don't know. And I'm crying. So having a sensitivity about that and having a sensitivity about what teams have gone through in your league can help you be prepared. It's about having a plan of action, not deciding that something means something before it happens. Okay? It's a bit of a fine line, maybe vague, but I hope it helps. Barry, A panel umpire carded my daughter for dissent on a decision I agreed with. Well, I bet that car ride home was fun that day. Michael, in the absence of video referrals, I was coached to think about deliberately using my colleague to verify a decision you had no issue with, but a player or two appeal, and you want to diffuse rather than inflame. Your tone of voice tells your colleague you're 100% comfortable with the call, but going through the theater of checking. Absolutely. It's a great technique to, and you know, you don't be false about it. You know, we make jokes about how you might come in for a consultation together and talk about what you're going to have for dinner rather than talk about the decision that you just made. But it can be helpful. It's just that pause, that breather, and it shows everybody that you two are on the same page. And whether you get together for a consultation or you're on radios and players can hear you asking the question that they've asked to you. Did you see anything different, friend? Did you see a different foot? This is what I saw. Thanks very much for that help. I'm afraid they saw it the same way. And on you go. So, excellent. Love that. Oh, Barry, to be clear, you were umpiring. Excellent. You mean you're the other umpire on the pitch? Love it. Okay. Yes. Okay. And Michael, it can work both ways. And depending on what tools you have available, you know, both techniques are important. And sometimes you, even when you have radios, you don't want to rush that either. And I talked about this some weeks ago, where I think it's important to show people that you're on radios as well as just like having the communication. It's that theater of that communication that you did mention in your comment as well, that and you need to take your time with that so that people can see that you're doing it. Because you think, oh yeah, gotcha, cool. You think that's enough? No, people are distracted and that sort of thing. And they need a couple seconds to get their eyes on you. So make it a big, like a lot of body language going into it. Okay. Last example. Oh, let's talk first before I go to the last example that somebody brought up earlier in the broadcast were the sarcastic comments. Oh my gosh. We all know these. The big one, unlucky. And it's like it's a double-edged sarcasm comment, because it's like, it's unlucky that the umpire was wrong. It's unlucky that you tried to do your best, but you failed. So it's a very thinly veiled comment, and you just have to let it go. You'll be like, oh, that's a great call. Thanks, umpire. I really don't like when players thank me for calls. Don't give me a round of applause. Don't do that, because there could be an implied sarcasm in there, but otherwise it's like, hey, I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for the game. It's the same thing, right? You can't compliment me you can't reward me for the game, and you can't punish me personally. There's no personal reward, no personal punishment. It's just, I'm just doing this for the game. Hey, you can come up to me afterwards and you can give me a hug, because in non-COVID times, for doing an awesome game, and buy me a beverage in the bar, and we can be friends after the game. But let's keep it on the DL, just how much you like me, while I've got the whistle in my hand. Because that's one of those digging disruptive things that I really don't like. People have 30 seconds worth of showing radios and radio communication. Fascinating. I'd like to see some video of this. Get my eyes on it. Yeah, and great decision. Okay. And part of that is just lifting the dialogue. It's kind of like, if you don't respond to it, and I mean, it is so hard not to roll your eyes back at them. It is so hard. Or to give some, as Teo was saying earlier, to give back what you've gotten. But what you want to do is you want to elevate it and show that you've got class, show that you've got, no, it's fine. I'm not going to get into this with you. You speed up your whistle timing. You do all those sort of things. You make your communication, the stuff that you do say to players, vital so they want to listen to you when you're saying things. And they realize that that kind of asinine behavior isn't going to get your attention. And if they don't get an audience and if they don't get a response, because we know that players are trying to get under our skins. They think that this is a good idea. They're like, yeah, let's go work the umpire. Oh, Kelly Dunn's out there. Yeah, let's get into her. She's the weak one out there. We're gonna needle her and try to throw her off her game. What the hell is the point of that? How can that possibly be productive for anybody? Because an umpire who's off their game is going to make a lot of bad decisions, and they're going to affect both teams. Because that's how it works. Great decisions go both ways, and bad decisions go both ways. That's how it works. Why make things worse? It just means that you are spreading negativity in the game. You're lowering the tenor. You're lowering the level of skill and ability that you're going to be able to show, because the umpire isn't going to be able to do the things that they can do to make the game awesome. If there are any coaches listening, please, I'm happy to talk to you more about this some other time. All right, Jade, you've got an essay for me. Oh, okay. You had a similar one in a match a few months ago. You were thrown into a game 5 minutes into the second half. Holcomb versus Beeston, as TK, Tony Kelleher, injured himself. Gave a PS against Beeson for a defender blocking the ball with his arm on the goal line from a PC. A number of defenders ran at you, including Adam Dixon and Ollie Willers, who many of us have heard of, saying it was a glove. Decision was turned over. I saw Ollie, and he said he was spot on with the call, but having come into the game late, it was a good way to get into you, and that you were wearing a county shirt, so they knew they could get on top of you. That is really, really interesting and really unfortunate. But this is what savvy players think is a good idea. And sure, they picked that moment where that one particular call was going to benefit them. But what about all the rest of the calls in the game that you made, Jade? You know, for the rest of that half. You probably weren't as solid as you could have been. So yeah, one penalty stroke gets changed, but what about that advantage and that foot and that penalty corner and that free out and that this and that and all of those other decisions? Because one decision doesn't decide a game.
Prepare to meet Mr. Angry Eyes.
So, I think that is I think that's counterproductive. I think that's the wrong way to look at it. That's just me. Oh, I watched the game. It happened there. Oh, right. Okay, sorry. I forgot, Andy. That's true. Yeah, Michael, great point. Responding to Jade saying, so what are you going to do the next time that, you know, Adam Dixon and Ollie Willers come running up to you and ask you to question a call? You're going to be like, oh, remember that time you cried wolf? I don't think so. Even if maybe you should. This is the cumulative effect, right? So, Barry, coaches working the umpire at club level, players, especially juniors, who look to the touchline rather than the umpire. The sideline again. Can you let me do my job? Yep. Exactly. Yep, it's reality. And so part of our role is showing and demonstrating and training the players and training the coaches, teaching them how not to do it and why. So we have these conversations with them. We talk to them about, here's the effect. This is what happened. This is what was going through my head. And so when that next decision came up, I think I got it wrong. And it should have been in your favor. And I messed it up because of the thing that happened before. So now how do you feel? It's about showing your composure and different responses when you are, you know, reacting in the moment. So it's really important for us to try to strive for this level of excellence so that not only it's not just about us being great. It's about lifting up the first and second teams on the team sheet to get up to our level, right? Yeah, I like that. None of us are, Jade. We're all doing a little better. Okay, the last example I want to show, because, 105. How did that happen? My goodness. This was a big one when it happened.
Gagnes. And she's gone wide! And she's furious with herself! But China have done it!
So full context, that was the Olympic qualifier, game 2. And that's the game that knocked Belgium out from what would have been their first... Would it have been their first appearance ever? Jade, you probably know this. They were so close. They had been working so hard. They've been just busting a hump all through the Pro League, pulling out some results. Back and forth. Had a not so great Euros. I mean, it was just heartbreaking to see. Great for China. So terrible. And the reaction from Alex Gagnes there was significant. So the question is, there's a form of dissent, or not dissent. There's a misconduct there. Absolutely. Throwing the stick is not okay. But what do you do? Or why would you do something? Given that nobody got hurt, she threw the stick towards a very well protected, very isolated, very clear area of the end line, away from the umpire, away from any other players. There were no photographers, there were no television cameras, nothing. I think that's one of those situations where you put on your player hat, you dig into your player heart, and you think, how would you have felt? And you don't do anything in terms of a penalty. It might be one of those situations that you have a conversation, maybe not with that player, but with a manager, with a coach afterwards, and say, hey, I totally get why she's so upset. I feel that, but maybe you can have a word with them later about their reactions, because it was okay there, but what if somebody had gotten hurt? I would have had to deal with it. And I don't want people getting hurt, so we want to eliminate the chance of that behavior occurring in the future. So can you deal with that for me? Because, like, keep me out of it. None of us want me to have to do anything. So how about you? Maybe it's a captain, you talk to and just say, hey, you have to make sure that doesn't happen again. Okay? That's my feeling. And that's one of those situations that, think about what impact it had on the game. The game's over. You don't like the precedent that it sets for future events. And that's why you don't necessarily, and you might even put your hands out in a calming motion, something like that, and you don't even have to actually make eye contact with players, but you might just like this, something like that, to show that that's not acceptable, and yet still showing some empathy for the situation. There's a very fine balance to strike there. But it's not one where you would rip out a red card or even a yellow card. For me. If that happens in the middle of a league game and a piece of glass was broken. I remember Matt Allen was describing this a few times on the Reverse Stick podcast, where a player had thrown a stick at his home grounds. I think it was an opposition player, had thrown a stick on the sideline and had broken a piece of the some kind of plexiglass, something or other. That's something that, and it was in the middle of the game, that's something that you more likely need to deal with, because there is property damage and there is more to go with the immediate temper of that game that you might have to intervene with. And were they playing for sheep stations? Inga, I hope the stick breaks. We're the 100% wooden ones these days. Yeah, well, I certainly haven't broken a stick since I've had a composite, but used to break wood ones. Hitting the ball, obviously. Michael is Jock Stein, don't know who that is, once said, if you're good enough, the referee doesn't matter. I've yet to use that on a player during a game, mind you. That's sort of part of it, but it's also the flip of that, is that when the referees, you know, when the referee is doing their best job, then the players can do their best as well. So it's part of our responsibility as well to have and to perform at a high standard so that the players come up and meet us. Anik, if this was the first shootout, you still do nothing. Well, it's like saying if aliens land on the pitch. Would a player have freaked out like that in the first shootout? No. They wouldn't have. And at that moment, so if that's the very first round of the very first shootout, now remember that only yellow cards can be given out in shootouts. And if a player is yellow carded, they can no longer participate in any future rounds. So if you're in the first round, and that's like shooter number 1, if you get through that round, you have to play a tie-breaking round after that. That player cannot participate. So do they only get 4 shots? I need a technical official to tell me how this works. These are the things that umpires don't have to worry about as much. Because if a goalkeeper gets yellow carded in a shootout, they're out, and only another player of the shootout takers, only one of those 5 can go in and take their place in the goal. Put on the equipment and go in. You can't put the other goalkeeper in because they are not one of the players who are nominated to participate in the shootout. So I'm not sure how that gets handled. No, I think in the shootout, let's see. Oh, nobody's corrected me yet, but I think what happens is you could continue with, no, you can go in a different order, but they can only go once. So that could have massive consequences, right? So you're weighing up, do I really need to penalize this petulance and then possibly absolutely cripple this team's opportunity to move forward? It doesn't make it okay, and it doesn't mean that you don't then have a meeting, and because you're in a stop time situation in shootouts most of the time. The clock isn't running. You can grab the captain, you can grab the players just on their stick, you can pull them together, and you can do a public demonstration of that is not okay. That can't happen. Do not. Captain, will you address this? Fix it. And then you send them away and you let things continue. So you've made a demonstration of the standard that you want to set without necessarily penalizing the team for something that didn't take anything away from the opposition. So why do they get the benefit? A massive benefit in the shootout for that. And that's different from the situation from, say, a goalkeeper who wipes out the shootout taker and she falls and pops her shoulder out the way that Belansucci did to Jodie Kenny in the Pro League or the World Cup semifinal. And that needed to be a yellow card because the impact on that team, what was taken away from Australia at that moment was, yes, worth a yellow card, was worth a penalty stroke, and a player gets injured and can no longer participate in the shootout. That should be a yellow card to the goalkeeper. Even that up. That makes sense to me. I hope that makes sense. Inga, you agree because you do need to do something. It's seen by a lot of spectators who might be young and eager hockey players, and to completely ignore it might make them think it's okay. It's a fine, yeah, it's a very fine balance. And you are taking that into account. But not every not every action has to be a penalty. Not every intervention has to be, I'm resetting the scales of justice and the other team gets something better now. There are actions you can take that intervene, that send messages that aren't necessarily penalties. Those kind of conversations, body language, whatever it takes. Yeah, so Alicia, Barry's saying that maybe the umpire did talk to her and the camera cut away. Alicia was on Umpire at Home and we talked about this and that sort of thing. And she said, no, I just left her because I could see how crushed she was. The stick is thrown in anger and then she is breaking down. So no, there wasn't a conversation in that moment. But yeah, sometimes that can be a thing. And so you want to acknowledge, okay, do I need to make a public demonstration of this intervention? If you've decided that you need to intervene, are you going to make it a quiet conversation? Because you're giving the player an opportunity to fix it without embarrassing them, without shaming them. Or do you need to make a more public demonstration because there is a message you need to send out? Or do you need to implement a penalty that rewards the other team? There's a big range there. Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Simon, very much. Yellow cards in a shootout. Any shootout or penalty stroke due to be taken by a suspended player is forfeited. Whew. Yep. It's big. Ian, daft question. No daft questions. If during a shootout where the captain, who is not one of the participating players, were to be carded, would that mean one of the 5+ goalie would get the card? I can't see any reason why I would card a captain in a shootout who wasn't participating. You have technical, well, okay. I'm thinking international play. But there's very little that you shouldn't be able to manage without having to get a card out for things that are happening outside of the 8-second attempt. If you can't walk up to a team and say, knuckleheads, knock it off, whatever the malarkey that you're pulling is that you're doing right now. If you guys, just knock it off. I'm not going to start this again until you go. You talk to the captain, you say, fix that, okay? You have to be able to use other management tools for anything that would happen. You're not going to have delay because, again, it can only be a delay in the setup that doesn't take any time off the clock, and you're going to talk to the players. You're going to mitigate the situation. You're going to manage it with your skills. And that's it. So, yeah, that's one of those very, very, yeah, I can't see logically how that would necessarily happen. But if somebody has an example that they've seen or they can imagine, tell me. How does the yellow, asks Alistair, work in a shootout? Because time is irrelevant. Is it X amount of shots or they're out for the duration of the shootout? Okay, so you've seen Simon's reply. That should probably answer for you. You are donezo. Yep, don't go for the throat and work with the captain. Totally agree. Okay, well, I think we got through lots and lots of comments and questions. Hopefully I did really well, and I'd be really interested to know your thoughts on everything we talked about, as always, how you liked the comments here showing up from all the different places. And let's see. Oh, we got another one. So Simon, I'm on. What would you do if a player thinks she should have got a penalty corner but given a long corner and starts swearing, not directly at me, maybe to herself? 1 minute left on the clock. 1 minute left on the clock, I'd ignore it. I wouldn't do anything. And one thing that I really don't like is if umpires reverse decisions for dissent. I really don't like that. Because again, the dissent, if they're appealing at you, that is something for you to absorb and deal with, but the other team isn't affected by it. So don't give them the ball just because that player's being a jerk. Deal with the jerk. Don't upset the balance of the game. And you know, the scales of justice have been reset properly because you've made the correct free hit decision. And this team that's just been given the free hit and the scales have been reset in their favor, they're now beaking at you. You don't do this again. You don't ever want the scales to look like this. You want it to always look like this, as quickly as possible. I just did that on video. Naomi, any shootout or penalty stroke due to be taken by... Okay, you've got the same one. Any shootouts taken by this player and scored before the suspension counts as a goal. Right, so it's future attempts get taken off. There you go. Oh, thanks, Scotters. You like the comments graphic. Awesome. And you're very welcome, Simon, as always. Just wait until after our chat next week. You're going to need a few. Rachel's already had hers. Well done. I'm glad I was able to entertain you. That's what I'm here for, apparently, is entertainment value and hopefully a little bit of education. Let's see, I've got another thing to try. Don't forget, everybody, that, oh, it didn't always work. If you aren't already a member of the FHumpires third team, go and sign up. I would love your support. It means that I am going to be able to continue to do this week after week, year after year, providing top-notch umpiring education worldwide. This is my story. This is my mission. Ah! And the green membership is $3 a month. And just with that, you'll be able to access all the past What Up Wednesdays and a few other little goodies that I'm starting to throw in. So think about that. And of course, if you're in yellow, you get access to all of these. Plus, you get so much more. You get the 60 minutes a month of conversation with me. You get access to the very, very big clip library. If you haven't taken a peek at it yet, right now, it's standing at, I think it's 365 clips. And when this next batch gets uploaded, I'm going to be pushing up to almost 400 and working on pumping up indoor clips in there. So there's going to be many, many more added to the inventory. So anyway, there's a lot going on there. So please have a look, go join in if you have any questions about that. And if you are a member of umpiring association or an ad hoc umpiring group, you can form your own. Talk to me about a red membership because I can do things at scale and I would love to have you on board. So talk to me about that. Go look at FHU3T.com. Let's see. You're very welcome, Ian. Looking forward to Lee next week. Aren't we all? It's going to be great. David loves the comments on the big screen. Stain liked it too. Awesome. Thank you, you guys. You're very welcome, Simon. There you go, Goddard's testimonial right there. He loves his yellow membership. Love you all. You're very welcome, Rachel. I know we are so, it's so hard. The shutdowns seem to be getting a little bit worse for a lot of people, and I haven't seen a hockey pitch live for 9 months. And the SADs are fully in my body now, but we're gonna get there, okay? We're gonna get there. Keep cheering on. And Simon's gonna go back and look at the replay. Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining in. And Lee Barron, next week, be there. We're gonna talk indoor and talk our faces off. It's gonna be awesome. And until then, have a fantastic week and weekend.